Following a couple seasons of unprecedented success in the Champions League with regards to American players, this year, and we documented here, a pretty significant step back with regards to that. You know, the numbers were down and the star power certainly was down, but we got a ray of light on Tuesday in the round of 16 game between Chelsea and Dortmund. Two Americans going head-to-head, at least for a little bit of time, at least for a little bit, in the most watched game of the Champions League. Everyone was tuned into this, right? Everyone wanted to see it. It was beautifully poised. Dortmund had the 1-goal advantage, stars on each side. Dortmund had been playing remarkably. Chelsea starting to pick up, and they just made the $600 million of players brought in. So people were tuning in for this, and we had two Americans. How rare is that? And it wasn't just two Americans. It was the two highest profile Americans, the two biggest stars. Let's just say the two most expensive American players. Is that accurate? Christian Pulisic, who had that $60 million price tag. Gio Reyna, probably valued somewhere near that. And they got in there. And what made it really interesting is a few days ago, we were preparing for neither to be playing. Gio Reyna couldn't get on the field for Dortmund, who didn't really need him. I guess that's one way to spin it. And then Christian Pulisic battling back from an injury that he had way back on January the 5th, a knee injury. He came back much sooner than expected, and we got both of them. And that was a good thing. And we're going to break down this historically significant matchup here on the Soccer OG. Like and subscribe our videos. We appreciate all of you tuning in. Go over and check out the Soccer OG podcast. All podcasts are available as well. We have a new one with Kevin Hatchard of TalkSport, Sky Sports, and he is also one of the broadcasters of the Bundesliga. He was the radio broadcaster of Chelsea Dortmund as well. I talked to him about Gio Reyna and a great many things. I actually talked to him about Christian Pulisic as well. So it was timely, to say the least. So check out the Soccer OG podcast, wherever you get your pods. So let us look at this. And again, Christian Pulisic came in for a brief spell. We didn't see him a whole lot. But the fact that he came in is big news, especially when you look at that Chelsea bench. We'll talk about him in a moment, but let's first talk about Gio Reyna. And I was really concerned that he was sliding off the back of this roster. Not really in the plans of Edin Terzic. Go back to where he scored as a super sub right after the World Cup. He scored goals in 3 of 4 games. That 4th game, he did not play at all, which was kind of odd when you score goal, sit a whole game, come back and score another one. We were all bracing and expecting Gio Reyna to go on a tear. Starting games, scoring more goals. Then a weird thing happened, right? He played a couple minutes in the German Cup game. All right, you figure if he's not a favorite player, he'll get some action in the Cup play. Then he started at Werder Bremen. Then 4 games, did not play at all. Was on the bench, did not play. We were wondering, is it an injury concern? Dortmund are saying, yeah, he's maybe not 100% fit, but wait a minute. And then this Champions League game rolled around. And I was worried that if he did not play, that, you know, Gio Reyna, and I'm not saying that, look, he handled it like a professional, and maybe this is different from the U.S. men's national team, but when he didn't play for the national team, it was a problem. And he let the powers that be know that. I get the feeling he's learned a little bit, and he's learned to be patient and settled in there. So, there is a very good chance that he wasn't going to play in this game. However, Julian Brandt, who is the direct player in front of him, Gio Reyna can play on that right side, right behind the striker, which is Sebastian Haller, or could be Anthony Modeste. Karim Adeyemi was injured. He played in the first leg and scored. He could play for Marco Reus on the left. It's not apples to apples. But Julian Brandt if Julian Brandt is not there, as he picked up an injury in the 5th minute, Edin Terzic looked to the bench, said, Gio, this is your moment. Didn't have to be Gio Reyna, but I think when you're Dortmund, you have a bench, you have a perfect replacement for Brandt, who's been playing out of his mind. Gio Reyna got in there. So that is great news. And he basically had a full game. I wonder how it would have looked if Brandt didn't play, and we would have missed this. If Brandt did play. And I'm not wishing injuries. Injuries are terrible, and I hope Julian Brandt comes back. But if he's going to be out for a few games, And Dortmund, remember, they won 10 straight, tied with Bayern atop the Bundesliga. They have a game with Bayern on April the 1st. There's going to be a lot of important games. So even though Dortmund lost here, because he played, because Brandt is probably injured, it's good for Gio. He is going to play important games. And I think it's good on the other side that Chelsea advance. A healthier Christian Pulisic can maybe go on another magical run like he did when Chelsea won the game. So it was puzzling. I mean, we were concerned. And then when I saw Gio Reyna run on there, I was like, Eureka! It was fantastic. So let's look at Christian Pulisic. Did not play since January the 5th. It was a pretty gnarly injury. We have seen Christian Pulisic pick up injuries, rather innocuous ones. And you're like, wait, that's going to keep him out? Injury after injury. And you're like, you're worried about him because it's becoming the narrative on him. But this was a legit injury. John Stones came in of Man City. It hit him hard, and you looked at it like, ooh, that's going to leave a mark. He missed some action. Before that, Graham Potter, the Chelsea manager, was playing him a fair bit. And he's had like 20 appearances in all competitions for Chelsea. So he came in for the final 7 minutes. Did an okay job. It wasn't fantastic. He was rusty. I saw some Chelsea accounts when I did a search of Christian Pulisic, and they were really ripping him because they said that he wasn't pushing the counterattack. Or I thought he had made a couple nice runs to maintain possession. And did you ever think for a second that maybe the instructions from the sideline was to not push and maybe try and maintain possession, pull on the reins a bit to kill off that game? Did you think about that for a second? I was really surprised. But Pulisic did come in, and it was historically significant. His 48th Champions League game. It's twice as much as anyone else. 48. So he now has a chance to get a half century in the quarterfinal, whoever Chelsea play. It was also a game against his former team that was very special. There were some nice moments where Reyna and Pulisic were in frame together. And I had to stop and go, look at that. That's pretty cool. This is a huge game. This is the biggest game. I mean, PSG Bayern's going to be big, or Bayern PSG. Other than that, the other games are kind of decided, with the exception of Spurs Milan, which is not as big as Chelsea Dortmund. So he came on for 7 minutes. Wasn't a great performance. Didn't have time to do it. But this is why it was huge. Mikhail Mudryk was on that bench. Hakim Ziyech was on that bench. And Graham Potter picked Christian Pulisic. You saw him on the sideline, had a long conversation with him. He trusts Christian. It's clear as day. Chelsea played with a 3-4-3, and the three attacking players were incredible. So it's going to be tough to crack in front of Raheem Sterling, who scored a goal, was offside by this much, had that assist to Conor Gallagher, which was wiped away, could have had more. Great game for Raheem Sterling. One of the best games I have seen Kai Havertz play in a Chelsea shirt, even going back to that final against Manchester City a couple seasons ago. That was phenomenal. He hit the post like 3 times, missed the penalty, and then he got a reprieve, which people are going to drag Gio Reyna through the mud because of the encroachment. You look at it again, there's 2 Dortmund players, there's a Chelsea player. The encroachment rule is a bit absurd. You almost wish when there's that much activity that nothing was called. It was. Chelsea got it again. Gio Reyna a little bit on the hook. But other than that, well, let me finish on Christian Pulisic really good. He moved ahead of Mudryk. Clearly didn't turn to him in that. Havertz, Sterling, and Joao Felix, who, by the way, he cleared the air on how to pronounce his name. Joao Felix. Not Joao Felix. Joao Felix. Learn it. Love it. Chelsea are going to have a lot of games. They're going to try and push, but their priority is going to be in the Champions League. I would be surprised if Christian Pulisic at least doesn't get a small amount of a run in those quarterfinals. And why wouldn't Chelsea be able to go on a run? They are getting better. They won that elusive Premier League game, and now they knocked out the best team in Europe. Dortmund were unstoppable prior to this. And ironically, that is what kept Gio Reyna out of the lineup until now. See all these incredible ties that bind. It's such a compelling story when you really look at it. So Christian Pulisic, ahead of others in the pecking order. Graham Potter trusts him. we shall see what this run is on. Many believe, and the Chelsea comments think, that this is the end of the road for Christian Pulisic. We have heard it already. I tend to think it is, but what better way to leave the club on a high and raise your market value? We've heard rumors of Real Madrid. I don't know if that would be the best fit for him, for a guy who needs to get playing time. But if it's not at Chelsea, he's going to end up somewhere. But now all of a sudden you get the feeling that maybe there is a future at Chelsea, although unlikely. They're on the up and up. He's back. He came back at the exact time Chelsea had their best performance since maybe October of last year. I think you could say the first leg Chelsea played well enough, but you can't classify that as a good performance because they lost. They won this game, and you have to go way back for them to feel this good. And by the way, as an American, I'm pretty happy that Todd Boehly, who has been criticized a bit, stood with Graham Potter. And I don't know if Graham Potter is the right guy for this job still. I like the fact he has a good relationship with Christian Pulisic, but he stood with him because he believed the people around him who said Graham Potter is the right guy. So he didn't do a Roman Abramovich. He stayed with the guy, and now it's all coming up roses for now. Gio Reyna, I did want to get back to him about the stats. Created the most chances in the game. Had a huge number of duels won. 89% passing efficiency, which is an astronomical number. He was fantastic. He popped off the screen. The only thing was the encroachment. Everything he did was more than you could have hoped for. You figured he'd ease in a tough situation to come in for an injured player. Obviously, they didn't get the results. But Gio Reyna, every positive movement Dortmund had, Gio Reyna was involved in some way, shape, or form. I love the fact that he wore the gloves, too. Was it that cold? I think it was like 2 players had gloves on. Gio was one. This game was played in West London, so who's to know? So, there you go. This is a good situation. This was a chance for American soccer fans to go, yes, we're back in the money. We mentioned in a past video, check out the old videos, a lot of the American players in Champions League went to clubs that weren't going to be in the Champions League. And that's a movement that's going to continue. And it might continue with Pulisic and Reyna maybe one day. Maybe they go to clubs that aren't Champions League teams, but they're playing as a featured guy for those clubs. I think Pulisic, we're looking at that dead on here in the next few months. But now Gio Reyna, we'll see the state of Brandt, can lock in there and see if Dortmund can take away that shield, that Bundesliga shield from Bayern. I think Bayern's still going to win it, but this is going to be a fun race, and Gio Reyna should play a bigger role. Now, if they roll around this weekend and he's not playing, oh well, then there's nothing we can do about it. But this was something that we could celebrate in this case. And we have the Bundesliga race for Gio Reyna. We can get locked into that. Now we have the Champions League with Christian Pulisic back in the nick of time. Okay, all good. Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG on YouTube. All these incredible videos for your viewing and listening pleasure. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. We'll be back again sooner than you think.